Okay, good evening, everybody. Prior to starting our public hearing, we're going to be hosting the 2020 Zoning Commission organizational meeting for when we'll be electing our chairman and vice chairman for the year. My name is Jay Hibansky. I'm the Planning and Zoning Administrator, and I'm calling this meeting to order at 7:02. The first order of business, as I mentioned, will be the election of our chairman. Do we have any nominations from the commission? Commissioner Henrik?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to nominate Chris Silhavy as chairman.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second to Commissioner Vicola. We'll take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
And the motion passes unanimously. Congratulations, Commissioner or Chairman Silhavy. I'll let you take over. Thank you, sir. You got it. And down it goes.
Yeah, geez. Going downhill from there. Thank you to the members of the commission for your vote of support. It's great to be back. And I want to welcome all of the new and returning commissioners. Good to also see Mr. Vigliotti. He and I served together on the Planning Commission. Welcome, Mr. Francis, as your first time here. And, of course, Alec and Mike, great to have you back along, and to our staff. We'll proceed immediately to the election of vice chair. Are there a nomination? Mr. Vicola?
Yes, I'd like to nominate Mr. Mike Henrik for vice chairman.
Mr. Henrik has been nominated. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Vigliotti. Are there any other nominations? Are there other nominations? If not, all in favor of the nomination of Mike Henrik, say aye. Opposed, no. Carries unanimously. Congratulations, Mr. Vice Chairman. And on we go.
Close the organizational meeting.
Okay, motion to close the organizational meeting. Actually, the rules of order are listed on the agenda. They had apparently not been provided. So what I think we'll do is, can I take a motion to re-adopt the existing rules of order? We can make any changes later on if required. Motion by Mr. Henrik. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Vicola. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Carries unanimously.
I will send out the rules of order in our next packet so everyone has a chance to review for next month.
Okay. And can we have a motion to adjourn the organizational meeting? By Mr. Francis, seconded by Mr. Henrik. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Carries unanimously. We are adjourned at 7:04, which means we'll go directly into our public hearing. Mr. Vice Chairman, could you read our one and only petition for the evening?
Text amendment petition of Erstadt Biddle Properties, Inc., seeking to amend 10.2.2 regarding the maximum allowable height in an MA zone, in MA zones.
Okay, Mr. Knott, good evening, sir.
Good evening, Madam Secretary, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, Madam Assistant Town Attorney, and Mr. Hibansky. My name is Barry Knott. I'm a lawyer with the firm of Knott & Dunn, with offices at 1656 Main Street, Stratford. And I'm here this evening on behalf of Erstadt Biddle Properties, which is the owner of the Dock Shopping Center. With me in the first row is Corporate Counsel Stefan Rapaglia, and behind me is the president of Erstadt Biddle, Wing Biddle. This is an application for a zone text amendment. It may look a little bit familiar to you, but then again it may not. The reason why it might is because it was on your agenda in October of 2019. However, we did not proceed with the public hearing on that night because I withdrew the application. At that time, I was seeking an amendment to the definition of building height under the definition section 1 of the zoning regulations. And essentially what that would have done is it would have amended the building height regulation townwide. Residential, commercial, multifamily, you name it, the definition would have been amended townwide. And in talking to Jay and Susmitha, we conclude, and listening to the comments of the Planning Commission, because I had gone to the Planning Commission prior to coming here back in October, and everybody had a problem with the fact that it was going to apply townwide. And it was going to apply notwithstanding the fact that, notwithstanding the use of the building. And no one thought that was appropriate. And I had to agree with them. So I withdrew that application, and I submitted a new application. And in this application, I am simply seeking to amend the height limit in a light industrial zone. So if you look at the application itself, I believe in section 10.2 of the zoning regulations, it's got all the standards for buildings in the light industrial zone, setback, width, coverage, and one of which is height. And the height limitation is 60 feet. So I've added by asterisk to that 60-foot definition, the 60-foot height limitation, the language which would allow the builder to have an additional 5 feet above the 60 feet in the event he needed it for elevator extension coming up from the building, HVAC equipment oftentimes are kept on the top of the building, and such type of equipment. And in meeting with Jay and Susmitha prior to when I was drafting the proposed regulation, Susmitha had provided me with a copy of the New Orleans zoning regulations which dealt with that subject quite well. And she was familiar with it because she had been working in the New Orleans zoning department, apparently. And what we did is it's now limited strictly to light industrial zone, and the extension, the elevator shaft or the HVAC equipment has got to be located at least 15 feet back from the edges of the building, and it's got to be surrounded with material that blocks the equipment from public view. And the regulation goes so far as to say that the equipment cannot be seen from any public street. So in our case, the equipment is going to be in the middle of a 130,000 square foot building. And the only place you can be able to see it from is from I-95 going towards Bridgeport from New Haven. You will be able to see it, but it'll be shielded by the decorative fencing that the regulation calls for. And with respect to even seeing it from I-95, if you recall, when you approved this application, one of the things that you asked for and we agreed to do was put a welcome to Stratford sign on the side of the building so that it can be seen by cars coming from Milford towards Bridgeport on I-95 and on the Washington Bridge. So people are going to be looking at the welcome to Stratford sign, not at the shrouded equipment that will extend up 5 feet from the building. So I've just handed each of you comments that were made by Jay, and he addressed the request within the context of the Plan of Conservation of Development. I've highlighted 4 areas where he has found our request to be consistent with the town Plan of Conservation and Development. And I won't go into the details of what he wrote because I've highlighted in yellow, you can see it. But his conclusion is, since the first version of this application was withdrawn, the applicant has incorporated nearly all staff comments and concerns regarding impacts on the public realm, screening, and in residential neighborhoods, now only allowed in MA zones. The proposed text amendment should be considered for approval. So with that having been said, I will sit down.
Are there any questions from commissioners? Mr. Henrik.
The Planning Commission made a comment, and I don't know if maybe you can...
From last night?
Yeah.
Yeah. What they said last night, the word edge is in my draft. It shall be 15 feet from the edge of the building. They wanted it to be 15 feet from the edges of the building.
It says all edges.
All edges, yeah.
What-
So we have no problem with
What is it, what is there,
They thought that, to be honest with you, I don't know, but they wanted to make sure that, they thought that we could put it 15 feet from the edge of this side, on this side, but if the building was only 25 feet wide, it would be within 15 feet of the edge on this side. Now, obviously, that's not going to happen in a light industrial zone, and I wasn't going to argue with them. I have no problem with the proposed change.
okay. So there was no significant
No.
reasoning behind it?
That was it.
And then, so when you had talked about screening, so now you've got 5 feet up, and now you've got screening. Is the screening
I'll ask Quinn.
Just as far as your amendment, the thoughts are, we're gonna put equipment on the roof, which obviously goes there. It's gonna be in from the sides. We're gonna screen it. Is there a limit to the screening?
Well,
Is that included in the 5 feet as well, or, I mean, you're not gonna see it, like you said, you're not gonna see it anywhere except from maybe I-95.
95, yeah. I mean, I don't know that the screening is necessarily going to be limited to the 5 feet. It's going to be whatever height that is needed in order to screen the equipment. In the case of our building, the equipment is going to be 4 feet 10 inches from the top of the building. So we've got a couple inches to spare. So it may be that we can screen the building within the context of 5 feet, but it may be that we can't. And I think the important thing is to make it look good.
Yeah.
So whatever makes it look good is what we're going to do. Now, remember, we're talking about a 60-foot high building here. This is one of maybe 3 buildings in the town of Stratford that's 60 feet high, the other one being on Lordship Boulevard, the old Ramada Inn. And they may be the only 2. Most of the light industrial buildings in Stratford are 35 or 40 feet high.
Right.
So this issue is not going to be in play.
Yeah.
Unless it's an extraordinarily large building.
So, and to that point, we have very few buildings. You're maybe gonna be able to see it from I-95. Do we even need screening to, what are we screening it from?
Well, so Smitha and Jay felt that that was important. So did the Planning Commission.
Okay.
So I would prefer to have you require us to provide screening than not, because I don't want to go back on my word to the Planning Commission.
Okay. And can we put a limit to the height of the screening, or is that?
Yeah.
It's perfectly acceptable.
Identify yourself when you come up.
I'm Wayne Biddle, I'm president of Stratford Biddle Properties. So we wouldn't, I don't think it's a problem having the screening height be the limit, the 5 or 6 foot height.
5
5 foot height, that would be fine.
Okay. I mean, not that you're gonna do it, but, you know, down the road, and so somebody doesn't have to come back, they wanna put a 20-foot high screening that's got a billboard on the side of it or something, or whatever it may be, so, yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. Any other questions from members? Mr. Francis?
Yes, I just want to be clear. Now, this is dedicated to these specific items for this amendment, is mechanical, HVAC, elevator shafts and
Yes.
such, so it's specific to those items.
Well, now, those are the items that are required to build the building in 2020. 2030, there may be some other invention that needs to extend through the roof. So if it's a mechanical device of some sort that is appropriate to be used in the building, then we would want it to be. The intention is to have any such mechanical equipment, not necessarily just those, included in the regulation, although those are the only ones we're talking about now.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah, solar panels. They wouldn't go 5 feet, though. Yeah, I suppose.
And do you have an idea, quick question, do you have an idea of what kind of screening material you're going to use?
Wayne?
That's not decided yet, but I'm assuming it's going to be some sort of metal panel or wood panels.
Thank you.
Any other questions from members? Okay. Mr. Urbanski?
I'll just add that we did refer this application out for staff comments, as well as to the region. We received feedback from Metro Cog. They stated, based on their review of the proposed amendment, section 10.2.2, the town zoning regulations, we have determined the proposed revision is not regionally significant, which essentially means they don't have any concerns with the proposed amendment. Attorney Knott discussed the feedback from the Planning Commission. I concur with that assessment. And then this was also referred to the town attorney's office. Attorney Sullivan had an opportunity to review, and an email sent to me on January 10th. Attorney Sullivan felt that the changes, she reviewed the changes and she agreed with the town staff's opinion. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Are there any members of the public that wish to speak in favor of the petition? Anyone in favor? Councilman Cann.
Gregory Cann, 234 Klondike Street. Given the considerations that were mentioned by the attorney and the folks from Bond Shopping Center, Speaking in favor of the application, does not seem to present a hardship and seems to be an appropriate allowance. And I also want to thank the Zoning Commission, the Planning Commission, and the other town departments for giving their due diligence to assure that it meets our long-term strategic plans. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else wish to speak in favor? Anybody else in favor? If not, anybody wish to speak in opposition? Anyone in opposition? Any final remarks, Mr. Nutt? Okay. In that case, we'll take a motion to close the, this item. Motion to close by Mr. Henrik, second by Mr. Vigliotti. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Carries unanimously. And we'll take a motion to close the public hearing. Motion to close by Mr. Henrik, second by Mr. Vigliotti. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Carries unanimously. And we're into our administrative session.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Henrik.
Motion to take text amendment, Erstat Biddle Properties, Inc. to amend 10.2.2 regarding the maximum allowable height in MA zones off the table.
Motion by Mr. Henrik to take the text amendment off the table. Is there a second? Mr. Vacola. Discussion.
Do we need a motion?
Actually, all in favor. The rust is coming off now. All in favor of taking off the table, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Okay, we're off the table. Now.
I'd make a motion to approve the text amendment.
Motion to approve by Mr. Henrik. A second by Mr. Vacola. Do you want to add
Yes,
any?
I'd like to make an amendment to include the 5-foot height to include the screening.
Okay. Five-foot height to include the screening. And did you want to incorporate the Planning Commission's recommendation or not?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Is that not in the, I guess, our, yes. And to include, so the amendment would be to include that the height be the 5 foot for the screening and to include the Planning Commission's comments.
Okay. Do we have that seconded? Did somebody second that? It is second. Who was that? Alec. Okay. Do you agree, Mr. Vacola?
We got to take a vote.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So, okay, the two amendments that are in front of us are to include the 5-foot height, include screening, and to include the Planning Commission's change in language. Is there a second to the amendment? Yeah, Mr. Vacola. Any discussion on the amendments? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Okay, the amendments are carried. Now back to the underlying motion to approve. Discussion?
Oh,
Mr. Mansky.
I just think, I would recommend that
We haven't voted yet, Mr. Nutt.
the zoning commission give the reason that the proposed amendment is consistent with the town's plan of conservation and development.
Okay, and that was
The
written out.
reason for
Yes.
an approval.
Yeah.
so, and that was my reasoning. So based on Mr. Urbanski's comments, you know, I think that this is an appropriate change, and it does follow all our town planning of conservation and development and all our current regulations.
And I think we've worked very hard to make sure that this project goes over the last few years, you know, is aesthetically pleasing as possible, and we've worked very hard to make sure that we can accommodate what they're trying to do down there. So I would encourage voting in favor of it, too. Okay, any further discussion on the text amendment? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Carries unanimously. Moving on.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Motion to approve the minutes of the December 11, 2019 meeting.
Motion to approve the minutes by Mr. Henrik. Is there a second, Mr. Vacola? Any discussion, any corrections, changes? Pretty good to me. If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Carries unanimously. I'm going to go a little bit slower than usual through these just for the benefit of the new members on here. So, Mr. Hibansky, I don't believe there's any CAM site.
No.
Coastal Area Management, just so that you know the acronym, right?
We have no coastal site plan reviews for this month.
Okay. For item 3, it's zoning enforcement. For the information of new members, if there are things that you are brought to your attention that appear to be zoning violations, blight, anything that would need attention by the town P&Z staff, it can be brought up under this. This is a recurring item on the agenda, so just feel free to bring anything to the staff's attention that might need to be looked into.
And I would also add that if it's something that you don't feel that can wait for our next meeting, you're always welcome to give us a call right when you become aware and let us know, especially if something dealing with life and safety.
Okay, this is another recurring item that we have, item 4, accessory apartment applications. Those we would probably get in your packet if there are any of them, but I don't think there are any.
We don't have any this month, but next month we will have one on the agenda as an administrative item.
Okay. And again, item 5 is also a recurring item. Usually if there's an application, it might have a sediment and erosion control application that would go along with it. There is not on this particular one.
That's correct. We don't have any this month, and that type of application would typically get triggered when someone is doing, a developer is doing site work that disturbs a half an acre or more of property. So we didn't have any of those this month.
Okay. Item 6, planning projects. Do we still have to, at some point, address that methadone one? Do we still have that, or did not carry over from this last term?
That did not carry over. It was taken off of the agenda.
Okay.
And I will add items to this to number 6 or to the goal settings as the zoning commission feels is appropriate. And I will occasionally bring up projects that we are working on independent of the zoning commission or planning commission's direction, stuff that we're doing in-house. One item I'll talk about quickly tonight.
Okay. Other items, you want to talk about the new member orientation as well?
Yes, so on, I think it is, and I don't have it, the 31st of March. Okay, I'm sorry, yes. On March 31st, we have our Land Use Commissioners Training Academy. I try to do it every year. We aren't always able to pull it off, but we have Bruce Hyde from Yukon Clear. It's their land use department through the state. He does these crash course trainings for new commissioners, for staff, as well as veteran commissioners, about any new legislation, anything new that's going on in the planning world, also things that commissioners should be thinking about when they're making decisions on land use applications. It's an hour and a half. We're going to have some refreshments, some pizza, some drink, and they're fun. They're interactive, and I recommend that if you're available to come on down. And we've got folks coming from Shelton, from Milford, from Fairfield, from Bridgeport, maybe even from Westport if we have enough room to come attend. And they're really great. Anytime we can strengthen land use decisions, not only here in Stratford, but across the region, we all benefit. Every town benefits. So it's going to be in this room, and I'll be putting together a flyer. I'll be sending everything one out in the mailers. And if you haven't gotten the email, I would say check your emails.
Okay. Anything else for the board?
Nope.
Okay. Our next meeting is scheduled for February 12th, just for the information of members. You have your, especially for the new members, you have your schedule attached. We are listed as meeting twice a month. I will tell you that we will very rarely use that first date. That's usually for if there's anything urgent or anything that gets carried over. So in general, I would plan on just making, our next meeting will be the 26th unless something comes up, and we will let you know. And just plan on it being that second date of each month. Only if there's something really urgent or something that we do not finish will we utilize that first meeting of the month. Yes.
I have one more item that I forgot to mention. When I started here 4 years ago, one of the projects that I had envisioned working on and gained support of our prior mayor and our current mayor is to develop some overlay districts that continue outside of our TOD, but look to try to improve some of the aesthetic designs. One that we're going to be working on, this was actually voted on by the zoning commission about a year ago. It went to the planning commission, and it was discussed there, and they recently have taken it back up. We were going to have some movement on it in the past couple months, but with transitions of commissions and all the turnover, we decided it would be best to just wait and then re-update the zoning commission about what the planning commission is going to be working on. This is something that's coming from my direction, but I wanted to make sure that you all were aware, this is something that'll ultimately be adopted by the zoning commission. So we want to make sure that there's buy-in from you all. And I have got just a quick planning report that we've worked on, as well as a little map that'll explain where we're thinking about targeting some of these overlay districts to encourage the development that we want. Currently, our zoning regulations will require a tremendous amount of investment and overhaul to do that, and an easier fix is to allow for some of these overlay districts to guide development. So I'm just going to pass them out. We don't have to discuss them tonight. We certainly could if you all wanted to waive the rules. I just wanted to give you some time to digest, and I'm sorry they didn't make it in the packet. We weren't done in time, but I'll hand them out to everyone tonight. That's it.
Okay. With that, we'll take a motion to adjourn. Mr. Henrik, second Mr. Igliotti. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Carries unanimously. We're out of here at 7:26, and we'll see everybody on February 26th.